Well, good morning. Welcome to First Parish Unitarian Universalist in Medfield. We're so pleased you're all here with us this morning, and welcome to all of you who are streaming in from home. We hope you'll all join us following the service for social hour downstairs. I hope you'll join us for that. This congregation first gathered in 1651, and this historic meeting house was built in 1789, which was and is still now unceded ancestral land of the Nipmuc Nation, who inhabited this area for thousands of years prior to the arrival of the European colonists. Friends, welcome. Welcome to this place. Here we search for truth and understanding. Here we celebrate life and we contemplate its mysteries. Here we share healing and wholeness. So whoever you are, wherever you come from, whomever you love, we welcome you to this congregation.
This chalice is for the living, the changing, the becoming. This chalice is for losing the script of your life, the chapters about who you are in other people's stories. This chalice is for the lost GPS that was supposed to show you how to get where they expected you to go. This chalice is for skipping the directions, coloring outside the lines, painting not by number, but by silence, by wild abandon, with a brush you made yourself from light deep inside. Startling, vivid, a new voice that already knows you. Finally, a true story.
Deeper than DNA, more fundamental than molecules or quarks, at our living core, we are wholeness and transfiguring love. We often forget that power, becoming lonely or resentful, comparing ourselves to others, acting out of our fears rather than living in all of our glory. Occasionally, we rouse ourselves from our trance to remember our wholeness. For a time, we embody unsentimental love. We make efforts to wake others and to remain fully present ourselves. Our lives and our time here together are made sacred by our striving. So for the next hour and for the rest of our lives, may we be more aware of the spirit of life evolving through and among us. Come, let us worship together. Please rise in body or in spirit for our opening hymn, "'Tis a Gift to Be Simple," which is number 16. Seated.
You gotta say, hey, jet pig. Hey, jet pig. Give me a J for justice. Give me an E for equity. A T for transformation, P for pluralism, I, give me a G for interdependence and generosity, interdependence and generosity. You gotta say, hey, jet pig. Hey, jet pig. Give me a J-E-T. Give me a P-I-G. Let me hear justice. Transformation. Whoops. Equity. Whoops. Pluralism. Interdependence and generosity. It's all about love. It's all about love. You gotta say, hey, jet pig. Hey, jet pig. Hey, jet pig. Hey, jet pig. 'Cause it's all about love. Thanks.
Well, let's quiet our hearts and minds now as we enter into this time of prayer and meditation. Take a moment to find your breath. Breathe in deeply, and then release your breath. Breathe in deeply, and release. This morning, as we gather here in this beautiful meeting house, on this glorious weekend, so much to be grateful for. Grateful for all of you to be joining us on this spiritual journey we're all on together. Grateful for this place where we can lay down our sorrows and our fears, our anxieties, and know that the people near you will help hold them for you and remind you that you're loved. Grateful for this place to share all of the joys and celebrations. This morning, as we gather here in this sacred space, let us embrace this thing called transformation. Let's have a growth mindset. Understand that we're always in the process of becoming. Let's hold all of this in our hearts as we enter into a time of silent meditation. Amen. Well, now is a special time where we get to welcome some more members to our congregation. So I'd invite up John and Christian and other members of the Membership Outreach Committee. All right, well, this morning, I and members of the Membership Outreach Committee have the distinct honor of welcoming two more new members to First Parish Unitarian Universalist in Medfield. John and Christian, as many of you know, had planned to join us last Sunday, but a death in the family made that impossible.
We'd like to begin by telling you a bit about each new member. John Bowman Collin has been a resident of Norfolk for 5 years. He and his husband Christian have been married since 2010. They have one dog and too many cats. John has a master's degree in human resources and has worked in the field for over 30 years. He has a strong commitment to LGBTQ justice, civil rights, women's rights, and environmental justice. He is a part-time community organizer, and he enjoys painting.
Christian Bowman Collin was born and raised in Sao Paulo, Brazil, and came to Boston in 2006 as a postdoctoral researcher. He met his husband John in 2009 and was moved in and with a ring within less than 40 days. Romantic, isn't it? They said "I do" in 2010. He became a resident in 2013 and a citizen in 2017. He is a scientist at Moderna and helps support the research and development of the next generation of medicines. Currently, John and Christian live happily in Norfolk, Mass, on a lake house, maybe in a lake house, probably not on, with their five four-legged children. They are very happy with their life, each other, and the friends and the spiritual home. Their friends and the spiritual home they found at Medfield UU Church.
The beliefs and principles of Unitarian Universalism as a whole, and of this congregation specifically, have resonated with both of you, and we're grateful to have you join this faith community. Here in this congregation, human beings have gathered for centuries, seeking a higher purpose and deeper life than they could ever find alone. We're so grateful today for both of you that you have found your way here and that you have decided to make a commitment to this faith community. We hope that as a member of this congregation, you will allow yourselves to know and to be known, to minister to and to be ministered unto, to love and to be loved by this congregation. We never really know what combination of fate and friendship and good luck it is that brings certain people together in this world for any purpose, but we believe that membership in this congregation calls each of us here to celebrate the fate that has drawn us together and to regard each one a spiritual friend and a potential teacher, even and especially on occasions of hard lessons. The relationships we form in this congregation are based on the needs of the soul, needs that render each of us vulnerable and therefore reliant on one another's grace and goodness and generosity of spirit.
As members of this church, we pledge to be guardians of each other's spirits, to respect the ultimate privacy of each one's human struggle, and to believe in each one's inherent dignity.
Finally, as members of this congregation, we know that we can always rely on the wisdom of our covenant, which reminds us of our true purpose in being together.
John and Christian, are you ready to become members of First Parish Unitarian Universalist in Medfield?
We are.
Okay, this is all in unison, so just read along here. In the bonds of fellowship and love, we unite
to cultivate reverence, to promote spiritual growth and ethical commitment, to minister to each other's needs and to those of humanity, to celebrate the sacred moments of life's passage, and to honor the holiness of the heart of being.
We welcome you all to the community with all of our hearts. Let's hear it for John and Christian. All right, and as a token of our appreciation for joining, we have some gifts. Here you are. And there are our new t-shirts in there. If they're not, I just guessed on the sizes. If they're not the right sizes, we'll swap it out for the right size. All right, let's hear it for our newest members. All righty, well now I'd invite Kay back up for our morning's reading.
Pushing Forward by Elandria Williams. If we believe in the promise of our faith, we must continue pushing forward, even if the reality makes us want to give up. There is no one-size-fits-all solution or model, but there are many paths forward based on context, relationships, and place. Ideology sparks movements, but relationships are what change organizations and sustain movements. It takes one relationship at a time. In the end, changes to the leadership of the institution happen because of relationships, people pushing. We must place value on the relationships and the need to not leave folks behind in our quest for transformation. I live in a small city, and living in that small city helps me understand what community means. Community doesn't only include the people who agree with you or those with whom you want to be friends. Our UU faith is similar in that sense. We are a small religious community of people who are not bound by creed, but instead are bound by principles, values, and a covenant with a need for intellectual rigor combined with spiritual depth or humanist love. Everything comes back to our congregations and covenanted communities. This is where the faith starts and ends. We must embody the changes we wish to see and not just say that we believe in the changes. We must actually live the changes with every fabric of our being. If we believe in the promise of our faith, we must continue pushing forward.
Thank you, Kay. In the book Reframing Hope, the author Carol Howard Merritt tells about taking a family vacation in the painted desert of Arizona and spotting a large spray-painted sign that promised dinosaur tracks. It sounded too good to pass up, she says. After stepping from our air-conditioned car into the sweltering August air, we give a few dollars to a tour guide and follow him around the barren land as he points out ancient bones and red clay. We clutch our water bottles, sipping from them frequently to get some relief from the oppressive heat and dry air. The young man has a bottle as well, but his is equipped with a squirting cap, and he uses the stream of clear liquid to precisely outline the bones and fill in the embedded claw prints. There are indeed dinosaur tracks in the hardened clay. Not only that, but we also learn that the bits of red stone all around us, the same polished rock that graces so many pieces of locally crafted jewelry, is coral. And our guide points out huge sections of the ground that are rippled and explains, you can see that this area was once completely underwater. Amazed, I crouched down, tracing the hard, wavy ground with my finger. On this day in the dusty desert, I cannot imagine how it ever happened. I've read about these things in textbooks, how landscapes evolve, how plates shift, how animals adapt to new environments or even become extinct. But I never thought I'd stand in the desert and see clear evidence that it was once underwater. Well, when we get back into the car, my head is still spinning as I think about change. I wonder how long it took before anyone noticed that the plates of the earth were shifting. How long did it take for people to realize the masses of land were moving farther and farther away from one another, changing the nature of what sort of creatures could survive in their new habitat? How long did it take before we noticed the slow movement, before the chaos of it all began to make some sense, before we could understand the nature of patterns that seem so random? Everything continues to keep changing, she says, as physical landscapes shift and humans evolve. And right now in our culture, things are rumbling and moving beneath our feet. Everything is shifting, she writes. It's true, everything is shifting. Sometimes those shifts take place over a long period of time, like tectonic plates. And sometimes there are periods of rapid change. And it certainly seems to me that we are in a period of rapid change right now, major transformation. If we look at just the past 2 centuries, it seems that we are in fact in the middle of another renaissance. There was the Industrial Revolution, the invention of trains and cars and planes, breakthroughs in medical treatments and cures, the creation of computers and microchips and the internet, and now artificial intelligence. I'm certain that history will see this as a time in human history of major advancement. And even in the context of this Renaissance, it seems that our society's transformation has only sped up over the past 2 decades. Old constructs are being challenged. In recent years, we have seen grassroots movements challenge the status quo, questioning who has power and why so many others don't. There have been major leaps forward recently that have empowered those who have been historically marginalized. Think about it. In the past 15 years, same-sex marriage was nationally legalized. The Occupy protests raised our consciousness of wealth inequality. The Black Lives Matter movement brought to light the rampant violence committed by police officers against people of color and the inequities in our legal and justice system. The Me Too movement exposed the prevalence of sexual assaults, of domestic violence and harassment that women have been experiencing for years. The transgender community continues to fight for the right to use the bathroom of their choice, to have access to gender-affirming care, and the right to be treated with basic dignity, just like everyone else. More recently, the pro-choice movement has mobilized to challenge the Supreme Court's decision that made a woman's right to choose illegal in many states. This is indeed a uniquely active period of transformation across our society. Each of these movements have helped to shine a light on an injustice in our society. It seems to me that whenever the status quo is challenged, it is of course predictable, but that those who are in power will feel threatened, especially those who are educated, white, cisgendered, heterosexual, privileged, male, someone who's a lot like me. All of these challenges could be perceived as an attack on our very being, on our understanding of who we are and who we see ourselves as a country. All of this transformation can make us feel very defensive, feeling that those who are advocating for change are saying that we, those who hold positions of power, based simply on our identity, that we personally are the problem. And this is a terrible feeling. It's terrible to be called a bigot, or worse, especially when, like most of us, we aren't. But friends, the reality is that even if we do not consider ourselves to be bigoted, sexist, racist, homophobic, transphobic, anti-Semitic, and all the rest, we are all of us, swimming in this ocean of white supremacy culture, of patriarchy, of heteronormalcy. Like it or not, we are all affected by this bigoted culture that we are living in. And the reality is that some of us benefit from this culture, like I do, but most do not. Most are harmed by it in ways that I can barely comprehend. Some have become so defensive to this change that they have demonized and distorted basic concepts that have for a long time been seen as positive things. And I find this terribly puzzling. For example, concepts like DEI have been criticized. And this, of course, stands for diversity, which honors the differences as sources of strength, equity, that everyone should be treated fairly, and inclusion, that everyone should be welcomed and invited to the table, that no one should be left out. All of these attributes and things have been something that I've held up as things to aspire towards, certainly not things to denigrate. But now there is, in fact, legislation being passed across the country to outlaw DEI initiatives. And even this term wokeness, which is being used by the right to demonize those on the left, it simply means to wake up to the injustices that we face as a society. To wake up, to become aware of these things. And instead of realizing the definition of this term, wokeness has been seen as a slur in many sectors of our culture. Part of the transformation that we're experiencing as a society is a realization that this has not been and continues to not be an equitable society for everyone. And those who continue to be discriminated against have said enough is enough. No more. It's time for things to change now, even if it makes you feel uncomfortable. This transformation has been happening within our Unitarian Universalist faith as well. In response to some of the entrenched bigotry found within our very own UU faith, in 2017, the UUA Board of Trustees charged that the Article 2 Study Commission should begin to ask, to explore and deepen our understanding of who we are as an association of congregations. And after a long 7-year process that has included feedback from tens of thousands of UUs, multiple amendments at General Assembly and votes, we are nearing the end of this process. And in a few weeks, the new Article 2 will either be passed or it won't. Now, some of you I know like the changes of the Article 2, the new UU covenant and values, the jet pig that we talked about earlier. And some of you lament the fact that our beloved UU principles and sources will be changed. But as we all know, in this creedless, covenantal faith of ours, our values and principles need to be updated periodically to stay relevant, to keep up with the times, to speak to a new generation of Unitarian Universalists. But as I've said many times before, here at First Parish, we will continue to live with both versions of Article 2. If the language of the current Article 2, which includes the 6 sources and 7 principles, resonates with you, then by all means, continue to focus on it. If the new Article 2 that contains the UU values and covenant passes later this month at GA, and the language of this new Article 2 speaks more to you, then please focus on that. But I strongly believe that both versions are wonderful articulations of who we are as Unitarian Universalists. So while change might make us feel uncomfortable, the reality is that we as a society and as a faith are in a period of considerable transformation. For if we as a congregation and as a faith are to grow and thrive, we must be open to new ideas, to new language, to new concepts. As Alondria Williams said earlier in our reading, we believe in the promise of our faith. We must continue pushing forward, even if the reality makes us want to give up. We believe in the promise of our faith. We must continue pushing forward to embody the changes we wish to see and not just say that we believe in the changes. We must actually live the changes with every fabric of our being. Sometimes I wonder if we fail to change and grow who we are as a faith, will what we're doing here continue to meet the needs of those who are coming of age right now? I wonder what kinds of changes we're going to have to make in order to remain not only relevant, but meaningful in people's lives. Now, that is the heart of why transformation is so important. This is not only a congregation and faith consisting of our current membership, but a faith that must look outside our doors for a future generation of members. Recent studies are showing that emerging adults, those in their 20s, are not as fiercely independent and autonomous as the generation that preceded them. This is the generation that is not aspiring to be millionaires by the age of 30, but are simply hoping that they'll find a job in their chosen professions. This is the generation that's not assuming that they'll do better than their parents, but instead may be so deeply in debt that they've returned home and are actually living with their parents. This is the generation that worries about the destruction that we humans have inflicted upon our planet and wonder if human on life will even survive. This is the generation that is desperately in need of community, whether they find it through social networks or face-to-face in places like this very congregation. Now, may those of us who are part of this congregation now do all that we can to ensure that this, our spiritual home, remains not only healthy, but thriving, so that we will be here for all those who are yet to come. And while these periods of transformation may be unsettling, may we be grounded in the knowledge that what our faith and our congregation offers is spiritually nourishing, it is life-affirming, and it is exactly what this hurting world of our needs right now. Amen. Now I would invite forward Fritz Fleischman to introduce the offering.
Good morning. After coffee hour today, we will hold our annual meeting where we practice democratic self-government. There is no bishop, there is no state, there is no hierarchy of any sort that tells us what to believe and how to conduct ourselves in this organization. We should celebrate this moment. As democracy is under duress in this country and across the world. But there's also no bishop and no state, no hierarchy that funds us, that supports us. So self-government is inseparable from self-funding. And if we want to continue prospering, flourishing, existing, we ought to recognize that. So in this spirit, I ask you once again to open your hearts and your wallets and support First Parish and the organization with whom we split today's offerings. Thank you.
Isn't that wonderful? Thank you for sharing that gift of music. Please rise in body or in spirit for our closing hymn, Be Thou My Vision, which is number 20 in your gray hymnal. Friends, as we prepare to leave this sacred space, remember that in every person we meet, especially those who cause us discomfort, we find an opportunity for us to grow, to learn, to go along further on the path of transformation. Every single one is our teacher. May the next week bring you many such moments of meeting that help you to become the person you want to be, and may you welcome that with joy. Go in peace. I will now extinguish our chalice, but may its light and warmth stay in our hearts until we meet again. Here ends our worship. Let our service begin.